Okay, the time has come to unwrap this vending machine. Now, one note about this vending machine as I unwrap it, there are going to be a couple of more visible seams, but the intention is to texture this in Substance Painter. So that is that will allow us to hide the seams with ease, really. So we don't have to worry too much about that. So let's get right into it with some minor organization. I'm going to hide the glass just for a second. You can see I've got everything else in my scene hidden, so we can just focus on our vending machine. We do have a handful of monkeys inside the vending machine, just as an easy way to populate it with minimal effort. I'm going to select all of those and just assign them to a new collection. Oops, there we go. Monkey heads. And then I will move this up to be included in the vending machine. I'll just turn off that that collection. One note, again, the monkey heads have default UVs, which is what we're going to go with. Um, I don't think we're going to really do any specific texturing on them. If you wanted to, one thing you could do is select them in the UV editor and just choose UV and seams from islands, and then that will mark seams wherever there are islands, so it'll actually make those default seams real. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. Let's worry about this vending machine. And we'll start with these three shelves. They'll be nice and easy. I'm going to local view. I'm going to hit Control J to join them. So now they are one object. Because they're going to be unwrapped as one object, there's no reason for them to be separate. And now we can add our seams. We're never really going to see the edges of these shelves, so I'm just going to select top and the bottom corner edge loops. Okay, let's see what I've got selected there. And we will right click and mark that seam. Okay. You can see that the mirror modifier is still applied, which works in our favor. We can also add in some edge loops, add a couple to the corners, to these extreme corners. That will help the unwrap. So we'll mark those seams. We'll do the same thing on the other couple of shelves. Oops. Let's make sure we select the correct edges. Here. That seam. I haven't fully decided what I want to texture these shelves, but it's not going to be anything too flashy. So those seams in the corners won't really matter. So select everything, hit U, and unwrap. And that looks pretty good. We can apply our mirror modifier. Because now we have all of our seams marked. So we'll tap into object mode, hover over the mirror modifier, hit Control A to apply it, tap back into edit mode. Everything's selected. We'll unwrap it again. There we go. There's all of our shelves. And just double check, yes, our scale is applied. And we can go to our materials, apply the UV test grid, and material preview, and look at everything. We can see these things appear to be reversed. Let's check our normals here. We'll turn on face orientation. You see everything is red. That means that the normals are flipped. So all we have to do is hit Shift N with everything selected, and that will flip those normals, and then we will unwrap again, and you see those letters and numbers are now in the correct orientation. We can select everything in our UV editor and rotate them 90 degrees. Same thing here. 90 degrees. Let's make sure that yep, those are all rotated well and good. Okay, got that. Now we have all of that. We can queue and make sure we average island scale and pack islands. It's not rotating. You see this island right here. Just whoops, 180, not 190. There we go. It's R180. And double check that pack. Looking good there. All right, and so that's it for the shelves. So I'm going to go here. Let's rename that. Now that all shelves are combined, and we will turn off. Actually, we don't have to turn anything off right now. We're fine there. All right. Let's grab these front two doors and tab into edit mode on those and local view. These are going to unwrap the exact same way. Let's grab the front and the back edges. See, that doesn't go all the way through there, so we'll grab those. Okay. Same thing at the bottom here. Grab that edge, that edge, and that edge. Go. Grab that back edge. And oops, at the bottom here, okay, right click, mark seam. I'm also going to hit N here real quick and go to view, set my clip start at, oh, it is, let's add another 0 there, 0.001. So now I can get real close before it starts clipping. All right, so we have all of those. Let's unwrap that, see what it looks like. Okay, so these, grab face mode here. These face loops are going to be very long, especially once we apply the mirror modifier. So I want to break those up a little bit. So I'm going to grab these edges right here and here, and we're going to mark that seam, something there, and there. Mark that seam. Okay, that's going to be better. Let's remove these two materials. Oh, can't do it in object or in edit mode. You have to go into object mode. Remove those two materials. Apply our UV test grid. Go to our modifiers and Control A to apply your modifiers on each one. Okay, now we have most selected. Tab in edit mode and U and unwrap. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm keeping these a separate object because I'm going to want to rotate them individually. So it's just going to be easier to do it in object mode. That's the only reason I'm not combining them like I did the shelves. All right, so now that we have that, we can get our material preview here. We need to also the same material switch there. Okay, I have them both selected. Unwrap, and then I'm just going to again rotate these islands. Let's see. Let's check our normals here as well. Yep, you can see that they are reversed with everything selected. Shift N to reverse or recalculate the normals. And that's also in the mesh menu, mesh normals. Recalculate outside. That's what we want there. Okay. We did unwrap. We'll unwrap again after we fix the normals. Turn off face orientation. And then it's like these two islands need to be rotated. Let's see, R90. This island needs to be rotated 180. It's the backside, which we may never see, but just in case we do, we'll leave that alone. Select everything, average island scale, and pack islands, and we're done with that. Okay, moving right along. We'll do get all the easy stuff out of the way. So we've got this back panel, which we're going to see the front side of. We're not going to see the back side of, so I'm going to select this face and delete that. Okay. Now this is basically just a stretched out cube. So let's add in, let's see, we'll grab a seam at that corner, mark that seam, same thing at the bottom. We will mark that seam. And on the back side here, we don't have a seam that goes diagonally, so we'll just go right there, mark that seam so that these bottom two faces can fold down flat when it unwraps. We'll do the same thing up here. We will mark that seam as well. Okay, let's select everything and unwrap it. See, that's unwrapping nice and straight. I do want to give it a couple more edge loops, just like that, just to help with the texture mapping, just so we're not stretching across one giant face. So now that I have that, same thing. You know the drill by now. Apply the mirror modifier. Double check our scale is applied with our UV test grid. See, everything is upside down. But we need to re-unwrap it anyway because we applied the mirror modifier, so we'll do that. Okay, and then we can rotate this. Looks like -90 is the direction we want. We can pack that island. And that looks great. Okay. I'll do the same thing for the top and the bottom piece. I won't record that because that's going to, again, be the exact same thing. So I will rejoin you once I have that done. Real quick before I'm still just unwrapping the top thing, but as I'm unwrapping this, you can see that when I hit Q to pack these islands, because I disabled rotate, it was it was giving me a non-optimized pack. So once I do that, I'm going to rotate these -90 or -90. There we go. And then we can select that and pack them again. Just disable rotate. So sometimes you might have to like manually rotate these. So if we select all of these islands here, and actually, yeah, let's rotate these 90 degrees. Pack those again, and that's going to be a little bit more optimized. Actually, 180 over here. Yeah, I don't know why it wants to pack them over there. So in this case, we're just going to do it manually. Okay, so I'm going to bring those all down, get them close. I'm going to hit period and change my pivot point to the 2D cursor. So it's going to be down here in the bottom right. I want to make sure that cursor is in the bottom right. We can double check our 2D cursor and just set the cursor location to 0 and 0. Okay. Once I have that, I can select everything, scale it up, and now it's going to give me an optimized pack. Okay. I will pause again and unwrap the bottom piece as well. Okay, so I've got the top and the bottom unwrapped nicely. And we can work on this pedestal now. And same sort of thing. I'm going to select these faces here. We can delete those faces because we're never going to see those. Same thing on the back side here. Use C for circle select. And can delete those faces as well. Okay, that's going to make our job a little bit easier there. And let's see. We know we're going to need seam there so that will fold down correctly. Now, if we just unwrap this as is, see we're getting quite a bit of distortion, and that's in part because of this taper. This taper will certainly complicate things. So if we add in seam on this inside corner here, we'll mark that seam. Okay, that's a little bit better. But we also need to do something about the underside here. So I think we can probably just grab this edge right there. We'll mark that seam. Okay, that's looking good. Now we just have this top bit to figure out, and I think what I'll do is I'm going to grab this edge and control click up to that and mark that seam. Same thing here. I'm going to grab this little edge right there, hold down control, click there, and it's going to select the linking edges, and we'll mark that seam. So this edge or these seams, when we go into Substance Painter, those seams will be invisible because it's going to manually paint the texture across them. And then we'll never know that those seams are there. And then up here we can see we need to add in a seam right there. I think we'll probably do the same thing up here as well. We'll add a seam there. and a seam there. It's going to help that, again, just unfold flat. See, things are adjusted a little bit. If they're still not exactly as straight as you would like them, then what we can do, for instance, we can try the same thing that we did with the pipes. Select that. Let's go into shaded view or material preview here. We can hit Alt E, but what that's going to do is on these angled faces, it's really going to distort them, and I don't really want to do that. So instead of doing UVs to grid with respect to shape, which is what that Alt E is, I'm going to undo that, and we can just grab these edges. So like, we know this edge we want to be completely straight. So if I hit N to bring up my properties here, got UV squares, we have snap to axis. So this is already close to straight. But if I hit snap to axis, it's just going to straighten that out. And I'll do the same thing with the edge next to it. Snap to axis. Now we're going to need to select one of these and just move it over a little bit so that stays roughly even to where it was. I'm going to grab these as well. These three edges. We'll snap that to axis. Keep that even. Okay. And let's take a look here and see how we're doing. Obviously, we have these very prominent seams, but everything else looks really good, except for the top part up here. So I think I might undo those snap to axis and just let that be what it is. See, we're getting some distortion. That's just from the subsurface modifier, trying to even those out. But you know, I don't really like what's going on in this top part. So let's try to figure that out. Okay, so I did add one cut right up here in this top corner. That'll just help that lay a little bit flatter. But we're still getting that distortion, which we will see if we get out a local view here. We are seeing that distortion. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark this seam here. I'll just continue this seam all the way up. We'll mark that seam. Again, because in Substance Painter, we're not going to see that. I'm fine with that. Okay, so now we're not getting that distortion there. Everything else looks good, so we can apply our mirror modifier, re-unwrap that. Okay. And we are seeing this one long continuous island, which is making everything else have to be smaller, and we've got a lot of unused space here. So I think what I will do is I'm going to continue this whole seam just all the way down. I'll do that on both sides. Okay, see now everything gets a little bit larger. Makes better use of that texture space. Looks like we can also rotate everything 90 degrees. Repack that. And that looks good. We've got one island. Let's see, which island is it? Right here. And rotate that 180 degrees, so that's facing the right way. That's good. Rotate that 180 degrees as well. And let's rotate that negative 90. And rotate that 180. So now everything is pointing up. Select everything again and pack those islands. And there we go. Now, we've got all of those things unwrapped. I'm going to save this main body for last, or second to last. We'll probably do the bottom keypad area last. But, oh, okay. So I want to do these little pipey bits, and then we're going to pack a lot of those things together into one texture space. All right. So let's run a local view on these, and we have a mirror modifier place. We only have to unwrap one of them. And this is going to be just like we did in the last video with all of the pipes. I'm just going to mark our seam there, and then we need to find an edge that we're less likely to see, which is going to be this back side. I will mark that seam there. With everything, unwrap it. Okay, and then with our UV squares, we can select a face that's roughly in the middle and roughly square, and Alt-E. It's going to unwrap that nicely. We can check our UV grid here. That's looking pretty good. A little bit of distortion here. So let's see if we can make that a little bit better. Let's see what we got going on. Right. So let's just unwrap that again. Let's grab a different face. Let's try one of these end faces. Select that, and I'll rotate this. So that's going to be a little bit straighter. Let's try that. Better, we're still getting some waviness here, which I don't care for. So let's see what we've got. You can always try different options here. Maybe try let's try this corner one. Why not? Do that and Alt-E. Okay, so I realized what my problem was, and it's a really simple one. It's just the subdivision levels are low, so it's just showing the actual individual faces. So I increase my viewport subdivision, you can see how that smooths out. So any of those options actually work. So now I know, and now you know. All right, and then this other piece, same thing, we'll select a face. L to select linked, and Alt-E. We can select them both. Q, average island scale. And before we pack the islands, in edit mode here, excuse me, in object mode, we will apply our mirror modifier in object mode, jump back into edit mode, both of them, or with everything selected, we will pack our islands. Make sure rotate is off, and that looks great there. All right, so now that we have all of those done, I'm going to select the top, the bottom, the pedestal, the back. I'm not going to select the shelves, and I'm not going to select the little doors. I'm going to first move them into a new collection, and we will call this, call it Vending Machine Sides. That will work. And I'll move that collection up into the vending machine collection, so now it's a subgroup. And that just will help me know that I'm going to pack all of these islands together. So with them all selected still, I'm going to tab in edit mode, and you can see our UVs are a little crazy because it's just everything laid on top of each other. I'm just going to hit Q and average island scale, and then Q and pack those islands. And that will work nicely. So we've got our back panel, got our tops and bottoms. I also didn't subdivide the top like I should have. That's all right. Cool. So now that I have that, we can move on to this guy right here. Go to local view, and let's begin the unwrapping for him. So, again, we want to think of this more or less like a cube. I'm going to separate the front and the back. So we're going to need focus on this for now. We're going to need a seam here. I'm going to go all the way around. So mark that seam. And same thing on the bottom. We'll mark that seam. Now, I don't have a mirror modifier on this because I have this panel on one side and not on the other. Oh, also, I want to combine these. So I'm going to select the panel, Shift select the body, Control J, and just make them one object. Okay. Got our seams on the top and the bottom there. We also have this inside little area, so we're going to need to separate the front and the back here. Okay, so we can mark that seam. And you know this panel right here is going to be pretty simple to mark. So let's get out of local view here. Then I guess we can stay on local view, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to hover over the main body, hit L, and just hide it so I can focus on only the panel. And we just need to cut seams in the corners here so that it can lay nice and flat. This is an easy one to do. It's not that one. And that right there, mark seam. So we don't need to unwrap that. I'll hit Alt-H to unhide everything. Okay. Now, we haven't completely separated the front and the back. We still need to figure out this back side here. And I think what we'll do is we'll go down this corner here because we have this indent. This isn't going to lay flat if we try to fold the back face with the outside here. So we're going to end up folding it across the inside. We'll mark the seams down the back side on each end. Mark that seam. Okay, and then we need to connect here. So I'm going to select, oops, zoom in here. I'm going to select this first edge, hold down Control, select it to there. Sure we can just Shift click, and we will mark those seams. Same thing on this side. Control Shift click on all of those, mark those seams. And same thing underneath. Don't forget the underside. Mark these seams right here. Oh, looks like I grabbed something extra, so be careful. Make sure you're only grabbing what you need. Mark those seams. Same thing back here. Mark those seams. Okay, so we should have it separated into two main parts, obviously excluding the little panel there that we made. So let's check our work. So unwrap. And okay, so this unwrapped is one big island, which means I missed an edge somewhere. But you see that our little panel unwrapped perfectly, so that's good news anyway. All right, so let's figure out where we missed edges. Oh, duh. It's here that we missed the edges. It's this big channel that we have running through the whole thing. So we're going to end up unwrapping this in a few different pieces, I suspect. But it's going to end up being a separate texture, I think, at least slightly. So we want to make sure we grab the right seam here. I want to grab that seam right there. So we want to grab the corner edge. There we go, that's a good view of it. I want to grab this corner edge, so we'll mark that seam right there. And looks like that runs around the whole thing. Again, another reason why we want good, clean topology. And we'll unwrap that again, and now we have two different pieces. Now, they're not great pieces, as you can see, but they are two pieces, so that's something we can work with. And we can start, let's start here on the back side. Okay. And I think we're just going to add the seams here in the corners. Mark those seams. And I did just select that whole loop. It's going to go all the way around, which is fine, because we're going to end up separating that in the front anyway. Okay. See that now that's unwrapping pretty straight, so that's good. We are making some progress. Let's see. Backside here. Oh yes, so we don't have, when we marked this seam right here to separate the lip from the main body, we didn't do it on the backside. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put it right on the corner there. I'll zoom in so we can see that a little bit clearer. Okay, so we're right on that corner. Mark that seam as well. And now that backside unwraps, I'd say probably perfectly. We may even, we may be able to close this off and just make it continuous. So on the back here, just on the back side, I'm not going to select the whole loop. I'm just going to select back. So I'm going to select the first edge, hold down Control, select the end, the last edge, and that'll select the whole line of edges in between. We don't have the front selected. Let's clear that seam. Do the same thing over here. So select the first one, hold down Control, select the last one, clear seam, unwrap again, and okay, you can see that that makes it a little distorted. So I'm going to undo back there, add those seams back in. That's fine. Okay. So if we have that done, and I believe this is the backside, so we can turn on sync selection. Hit L. Yep, you can see that backside works too. So the reason why it doesn't unwrap straight when this is connected is because if you look at the side view, these front faces go out further than the bottom faces. And so it wouldn't really work when you lay that flat because either you would have slack up here or you'd have to stretch out the bottom ones, and that's why those have to be cut separately. All right, but we got all of that done. We can even check our stretching and see those are looking great. Okay. So now we have the front panels here. Then we also have this big island. Grab this. This island is going to be the kind of main channel where the glass sits. And then this island is these inside faces, maybe? I'm actually not sure which one that is. Oh, okay. It's this top area. And then, yeah, the main body. So let's work on the main body first. And we can see there's a bunch of distortion here, and that's because of this area right here. So let me select this panel, and I'll hide that. I'll go into edge mode here. And because we extruded these in, so it had some thickness, that's what's causing this distortion here in the UV editor. So I'm going to grab the four corners. Zoom in here, that corner, and grab that corner, right click, whoops, and mark the seam. Select everything and unwrap it again. And we are, it's better, but we're definitely not there yet. Let's take a look. Okay. Those are all there. Let's also work on this little inset here. I'm just going to grab the corner edges. We're going to mark those seams as well. And in the UV editor, let's turn on the EU. I'm going to turn on live unwrap so that as I make these changes, see them adjust. So we'll grab those two corners as well. Oh, and you can see I grabbed all the way through, which I don't want to do. So let me actually undo that, because I just want to grab the outside. I'm fine with the backside. So grab that first edge. I'm going to hold down Control. Click there. It's going to, again, select those linking, the shortest path between those edges. And I'll just work my way around there, and then this last edge, we'll mark that seam. Okay, like you see that separates that off. And same thing here, so I'll grab this edge. Now, if I just try to go all the way around, oh, it actually did. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was going to grab, if it was going to think that the shortest path was on the inside or the outside, so it looks like you can just select the first and last. In this case, we'll mark that seam. See, that separates that off nicely. Its own band. We'll do the same thing down here. Select this edge, and then we'll go to the other side, hold down Control, select that corner edge, mark that seam. And last one, we're going to grab that edge right there. Okay. And around here, zoom in, hold down Control, click, grab that edge, and mark the seam. Okay. So we've got a few more pieces anyway, which has to count for something, right? And then let's look at the center here. You can see that that didn't actually work very cleanly in the center area. So let's go into wireframe. I want to C for circle select. I'm just going to grab all of these edges here and here. And we're going to right click and we're going to clear that seam. Go back to solid view here. And we're just going to manually mark that seam there. And here, over, mark that seam. Same thing over here. Grab here, hold on Control, mark that seam, and whoops, we don't actually want those seams at all. Let me clear that seam. This seam is what we want. And mark that seam. Okay. And now when I cleared those edges, it looks like I had a couple of extra ones. So let's clear those seams. Okay. Got that. We need to re-add or add this edge right here on the front. So let's mark that seam. See, that splits that off. We've got this weird island right here, and what that is this inside area. So I'm going to grab this corner and let's go opposite corner right up here. This corner right there, just those three edges. We'll mark that seam as well. That's going to flatten that out nicely. Okay. It ends, so that's out of the way. See a little bit clearer. Okay. Let's see what else we need to. So this is the whole thing, but it's really, really weird down on this end. So we're going to need to do some work there. I think what we'll do there we go, is all right, I'm going to separate this whole kind of inside lip section for the panel. Because when these unfold, they're going to lay on top of each other, and Blender doesn't want that to happen. So mark these seams here. I'll grab this one as well. Mark that seam. Zoom out here. Now things are looking a lot better. We still have a little bit of distortion there, but if we add in our edge loops here, and we don't want to go on the back side because I'm happy with that, so I'm just going to go on the top, bottom. So let's go zoom in here. Go there. Okay, so this is the area between the taper and the little band that goes around the rim of the glass. So we will mark that seam. Same thing here. There to there. Mark that seam. Okay. Just thinking. We have more seams than we necessarily need. Let's grab this whole. Let's grab this whole edge here. This whole edge. We'll just mark those seams. I'm gonna split that off nicely, and then because we have that, this front area here, because it's going all the way around, all these edges here, we don't need seams there, so we can clear those seams. Oh, well, maybe we might have deleted too much, or cleared too many seams. Let me undo that. Yes, I did undo too many because we still need one seam left over for it to actually unwrap from, like a cylinder would. So let's do this. We'll still clear all of these seams. That's going to look really terrible for a second. But we also have this inside channel here where the glass is going to be. So we can grab this inside corner edge. See if I can get a decent view so you can see what I'm actually selecting. There we go. So this inside corner edge here, trying to give you a good view. Oh, there it is. Very finicky here. There you go. So I'm going to grab that edge and we'll mark that seam. That straightens everything out. Okay. So at a decent spot, I don't think we're quite there yet, but we can check our work at this point. So we'll add, go into object mode, we'll get rid of these two materials and add in our UV test. And take a look. Okay, so you see this band still needs some work. The inside and the outside, however, are looking good. Underside is looking good. This area in the front, looking pretty good. Yeah, okay. Works for me. So let's figure out the band next. All these are working pretty well. What area is this? This is up here. I don't know why that's going up at an angle. got a couple of extra edges here. We clear those edges, clear those seams. I'm just going to click on that whole loop, and we'll make sure we deselect that edge. Clear those seams. Okay. I bet I missed those same seams on this side. I did. So Control Alt click, select all those edges. Deselect this inside one because we need that one. Mark or clear those seams. Okay. Works. Then here, see if we. I think I'm just going to grab these edges as well. So these corners of the little channel that the glass is going to sit in. I'll mark those. That's going to split them up a bunch. A lot of pieces here, but that's all right. So we can actually probably clear that seam. No reason to make them all separate. Okay. Let's take a look. Not seeing really any distortion. I do believe I'm seeing some normal issues, so we'll select everything, Shift N, recalculate normals outside, unwrap again. Okay, that fixed those issues. I think we're in a pretty good place. The last thing that I'm going to want to do is I think we can do a little bit more simplification of edges. And this edge right here, I don't think we need that marked. I think we can clear that seam. Zoom out here so we can kind of see the results here. But let's clear that seam. Yeah, we don't need that one. Probably don't need the bottom one either. Let's grab just the bottom one. We're going to leave the top one. Let's clear that seam as well. Okay, and that worked. All right, we can see we're getting a little angle for this part right here. Undo that. And we're still getting that before, so we'll keep those connected. Look at the back side here. And on the back side up here, we can keep these seams. Oh no, because we separated this out as its own piece. You see, there's a few different ways we can go about this, and there's not necessarily a right or wrong, especially with Substance Painter. You know, it gives us a little bit more freedom for where we can put our seams. Good there. I don't love how this kind of angles up. I think I might just add a seam there. I'm gonna straighten that out. That's the simple way. If you weren't using Substance Painter, then I might make these continuous and just keep the seams in the corners here. But with Substance Painter, be a little bit more daring with our seams. Okay. So good with all of that. This looks like it is close to unwrapping cleanly, but not quite. I think it's because we need to add some seams here. Let's do the same thing up here. Actually, don't need. Let's add the seams first. Mark that seam. Same thing on this side. Let's mark that seam. Then I'll go around to the back side. We don't need these seams back here, just on the back side. So hold down Control, select, and clear that seam. It's a whole lot easier when you have fewer islands. Clear that seam as well. Okay. Again, because this backside is a whole lot simpler. We don't have that lip jutting out, whereas on the front side here, we do, and that complicates the geometry. But now, these are looking pretty clean. It looks like on this piece, we might be able to do the same thing that we did on the center. Might be able to clear some seams. Let's do that. Let's grab this edge to that edge, and we'll clear that seam. Okay, that's looking good. And then we can also do the same thing here on this little inside edge, that seam to that seam, and we'll clear that in a solid view so you can maybe see that a little bit better. The same thing on this side. So this seam, there we go, that should help you see. That seam to this seam, we'll clear that. Seam to this seam, we'll clear that. Okay, so now you can see that that's going to be continuous. And we can almost certainly do that same thing down here. So I'm going to go grab that seam, hold down Control to there. See, we've got a couple different pieces here. Now when we clear that seam, now it's all one piece. And same thing over here. That seam to that seam, to that seam. Actually, I think I missed one over here. I did. The underside of this lip. Get that one. That one, and clear that seam. Okay. So I think that's just about everything. Let's look at our UVs here. This front piece, I need a little bit of work on that, but that should be it. So this front piece, if I hit L, you can see that this isn't laying quite as flat as it should be. So I think what we'll do, kind of see how it loops around there. Let's try this. Let's just grab this first face here. On L, select the whole thing, and Alt-E. I don't think that's going to work. No, that's not going to work. Let's undo that. Oops, didn't mean to do that. I think we're just going to need to cut some relief edges in here. So these corners, we'll just do that. Let's mark that seam there, there, there. So it's kind of, in this case, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You could mark these seams, or you could just mark this seam right here and have it running across the whole front corner. I'm chosen to do it here. just because, really. I don't have an explanation any more than that, just because. But it works. You see that's better. We're still getting a little bit of a distortion. Oops. And that's because, sorry, my camera's all over the place. You do the same thing on the inside edges here. There and there. And that'll just help it lay flat the rest of the way. All these inside corners, just the middle of the triple fence should be enough to get what we need. Okay, so now that's looking great. Those are looking great. It's just this side piece here is the only other thing that I think needs some help. And I think we're just going to do the same thing, as we're just going to cut seams on the corners. That'll help it lay flat. Mark seam there. See, that's going to lay much flatter. Yeah, we'll do that. So I'll pause it and do that, and then back. So ran into a little bit of a snag, and you see as I mark these corners as I unwrapped it, you do get this overlap in the UVs, which you definitely don't want. So I'm going to reverse course here, undo back a bit. Undo until this one goes away. I think I got a couple more to undo. There we go. Okay. So I think instead I will just do on the corners, both faster and gives slightly better results. So we'll mark those seams. Again, we've got these front areas that we can leave alone. You know what? I think that's going to work. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. So, the exception being all these seams that I just cut here, and I apologize for having to go back here, but we can just Control-Alt and click on both of these edges, and we can clear those. But we actually don't want to clear all those seams. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to Control-Alt, click on one, down Shift, select the other, go into wireframe. No, it's not going to work. Trying to find a visible way to clean these up so you can actually follow along. Maybe just going back in and manually clearing those. We don't need these seams anymore if we've got. We're going to select those. Alt click. That works. So I'll click on all of them and clear those seams. We don't need them anymore. That's what I get for trying a new way when I'm recording, when I tested this a different way. But once we have that, look back at our UVs, everything is looking pretty straight. We've got this area right here, which is this inside face, so we can just select one of these faces, all, and then Alt-E to make that straight. And we'll do that same thing on this one as well. Select one of those, L to select linked, and Alt-E. So we've got the same thing going on here. L, Alt-E. And I think everything else is looking good. So that's the hardest bit of UV unwrapping that we're really going to do. I'm going to select everything here. And we can average the island scale. See, there's a little bit of adjustment there. We Alt-H to unhide everything. See that this is mirrored and it's upside down, but Shift-H, and then we can unwrap that again, and now that's going to be, check that, it still looks wrong. Let's look at our face orientation. Yep, you can see that that is still wrong. So to select that, and Shift-N is what we want, not Shift-H. That's why it didn't work before. Alt-H to unhide everything. And we'll turn off face orientation. Okay, so we've got everything unwrapped. Now I just want to rotate things around so that I can see them in the proper orientation. Oops. I'm going to write that one more time now that I fixed the normals there. Okay, so average island scale. Back the islands. Oh, we got to go back and do this again. So select a face, L, Alt-E, and same thing here. Select a face, L to select linked, Alt-E, same thing here. Select a face in the center, L, Alt-E. Okay. Now we can average island scale and pack the islands. And then I'm just going to go to island select here. And we can rotate this one 180 degrees. You can see that's actually this face right here. Again, we know that the longer end needs to be on top, so we're going to rotate that 180 degrees. That looks good. I'll select these as well. We can rotate this 90. Rotate this 90. And rotate this 90. We don't necessarily need to go through and do the whole thing. Pack those islands that way. Okay. So I think from here, maybe we'll grab this front section. Be useful just to turn on sync selection so we can see what we're grabbing. And L, that's this area. I'm going to go through and just, whoops. So this is, make sure we're in faces. If we're in edges, it's going to select, since this edge is part of multiple islands, it's going to, when I rotate one, it's going to rotate both. I don't want to do that. So make sure we have faces selected. Then L to select that. Let's see, it's this one up here. I'm just going to go through and I'm going to manually rotate them all, or all the big ones anyway. I'll leave these long skinny ones alone. But I'll rotate them all so that they're facing the correct orientation. And then I'll come back. R180. There we go. Okay, so I've got everything rotated the correct way. And we packed our islands. And this is a pretty decent pack. But you do have the option, if you want to maximize this a little bit more, is what you can do is you can manually move them around because Blender will not pack in these cavities. It uses a bounding box, so you can manually move things around and get a little bit of a tighter pack. And again, that would be the same thing here as if we go into island selection. And I can maybe move this one over here, just along the x-axis, and move this one over. Okay, and now I've got all of this space in here where I can pack more information. And I can maybe select these and move that one down in there. And maybe I can grab this one and tuck that away in there. And then once I do all of this, once you have it all packed, you want to pack to the bottom left corner. Then we can reset our 2D cursor location. Okay, hit period to scale from the 2D cursor, select everything, and scale, and then you can scale it up to pack it close, maximize the space as much as possible. So I won't go through all of that in video. We're already at about an hour. But that's it for unwrapping the vending machine. I will get a local view here and Alt H. I will unwrap the other two in the next video. The glass will be pretty straightforward. Actually, we can do the glass real quick because that's going to be real easy. It's going to be the same as the shelves. So I'm just going to grab, make sure we are in edge select. I'm just going to grab the corner edges here. Just want to go, there we go. Grab these corner edges all the way around. And make sure we grab on the front here. You see that I've already applied the mirror modifier, so I do have to do this part manually on both sides. Make sure we have everything. Mark that seam, and then we'll grab the corners as well. Mark that seam. Oh. Do I still have? Oh, I just have the mirror modifier applied in edit mode. That's all. I do still have the mirror modifier. Great. I'll grab this bottom. Yeah, we'll grab this bottom corner as well. Mark that seam. Okay, so once we have all of that broken up, then we can apply the mirror modifier, select everything, unwrap. See that it's a little bit distorted, but we're actually going to leave it that way. We will, however, select these two islands and rotate them 90 degrees. You can see that our normals are reversed. They're mirrored, so we will Shift N and then re-unwrap those. Re-rotate these back 90 degrees. Pack the islands. And that's looking pretty good. So it's a little bit distorted. It does go up on the ends, but I want this all to be one piece, front and back. So it's very minimal distortion, and really it's only at the corners. So you're not going to notice it too much. It's just going to give us a cleaner texture when we add smudges and fingerprints to our glass. One thing you might want to do, however, is we can maybe add in a seam right here in the center. That's going to also add it down here. I applied the mirror modifier, so we'll do it on both sides. There and there. Mark seam. Okay. Unwrap. Grab these two, and we will rotate that 90 degrees. And pack the islands just like that. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. I'll do the keypad on a separate video. But there is most of our vending machine unwrapped.